Welcome to session 2. Let's go ahead and go on in and check it out. Over on the left-hand table of contents area, you should see session 2. If you click it, then you'll have these 5 pages that are inside of the module. And do recall that you can manually check off that you've looked at each of these 5 pages. So let me go back out and show you. Like for example, we're looking at the checklist right now. Let's pretend you're done looking at this page of the module. I think if you click this, then if we go back out to this table of contents view and we look at session 2 again, notice how it's been checked off there too. So there's multiple ways to check off that you've gone through the class. I know most of you are aware of this, but do use that tool if that helps you sort of visualize where you've been and where you yet need to go. Okay, so let's go on into the module. And I'm going to, okay, there we go. So we've got 3 main aspects to the session. One of them is to give you guys a big picture view of the projects in the class. The most important, really, I mean, if you have to rank them in terms of importance, I would say the field experience timesheet and reflection project is super important, and you actually need to start working on that right now, which is why you really need to read all of the instructions, take that time to do that, and not think just because this is due in November that you don't need to think about it till November. That is not the case. This is one of those long-term projects that can make or break your passing the class, finishing the class, getting credit for the class. If you don't do this properly, if you miss some important detail, it could be that you get an incomplete. So this is an important assignment, as you can tell. These other items that I want you to look at, they're here, they're available for you to look at. You don't actually have to look at them, but you can acquaint yourself with the 3 other projects of the semester. And beginning in session 3, we'll start working on those. So ethics project will be coming up in session 3. And it's probably the easiest of those 3. Probably the hardest of those 3 will be the philosophy of education paper. That one's a little more intensive, I would say. That's why the hardest of the 3, actually. But this one's coming up in session 3. All right, so in this session, in terms of our educational issue, we're going to be looking at education from the national or the federal level in the United States. And if you remember from the Finland Phenomenon movie that we watched in session 1, I think Tony Wagner talks about how it's hard to compare United States education to, say, Finland, the educational system of Finland, because in the United States, every state has a different education system. So education is unique to each state. There's different laws governing education in Texas versus Georgia versus Massachusetts. And so you see quite a bit of variation, even though there's a lot of similarities across those systems. There's also a lot of unique peculiarities. And so it's very hard to say there is one education system in the United States because there just isn't. I read today that the federal government funds about 11% of public education. So 11% of the money going into, say, Carrollton City Schools or Carroll County Schools may be from the federal government, and the rest is local. So education is really a locally driven thing, and by local I mean from that town on up to the state level. So there's lots of rules, things that go on between town, between county and state, but that's what we mean when we say local. So we'll keep drilling down into that, and you can definitely keep trying to bring it back to that. But for this session, we want to think about what are the big issues that concern the federal government. There's a reading that I think is fantastic. It's from a history book, and it's from a book that came out this year, actually, on the history of education. And the very last chapter is all about current issues in education, things that our recent presidents have been interested in, like No Child Left Behind, Race to the Top, the Common Core is noted in there. So it's a great overview of what are the concerns of the federal government. In our moment in educational history appearing at the end of the module, we had the opportunity to look at the situation of Ruby Bridges, who was a child. I think she was about, I haven't listened to this for 6 months, but I think she was about in kindergarten when she was a test case to go into a New Orleans school at the time of integration in the 50s. And you know, she didn't really know totally what was going on, but her recounting of that story is fascinating and a little bit horrifying that that was our society. And honestly, you know, you could say that that still is our society to an extent. I mean, I'm not saying that everything's fixed now, because it certainly is not. But that situation, the civil rights movement that brought an end to segregation, was an example of a federal issue bearing down on local school systems that would have preferred to stay segregated. So that's why I put that in the moment of educational history. I hope you guys enjoy that. It is for enrichment. There's no test on that, but it's good stuff. You might even start with that. That might actually get you in the mood for why this is important. Heck, I should have thought of that. All right, so let me go ahead and cruise on past the checklist and just glance through various items. Be sure you check out the course plan. It's our big picture map of where we're headed this semester. It tells you, when session 2 happens. It happens from Monday, September 8th through September 21st. These are the items that you need to turn in by this time. So you need to do a blog post, you need to do peer responses, and you need to do your declaration of field experience. In addition, of course, the other things that I put in this session you also need to do. Session 2 activities, do visit this. This is so very important. That's why it gets spot A, learning about that field experience and getting going on that. And then this is your declaration of field experience. That is something due at the end of session 2. These are the other course projects. Here's your prompt for the session 2 issue, and just information about submitting. You're probably familiar with this responding to 2 peers posts. It's the same as last time. And remember, we don't turn those peer responses in until session 6, so don't worry about that. But if you want to be documenting along the way, you certainly can. If you want to say, in session 2 I responded to X and Y classmates, and that might help you to kind of keep it straight. But the Google community is really fantastic for allowing you to search by your name and search for the posts that you've made. So I don't think it'll be too hard for you to find them. This is our session 2 issue page. Do give this time. This is not meant to take an hour. This is meant to take maybe 10 hours. Because if you think about this, this is a 2-week session. And so, in order to benefit from the topics and get into the issue, it takes time. You're going to need to read. You need to set aside that time and do that. Clicking through, here's our Ruby Bridges page. Right now I see a blank spot, but yes, it's coming. And if it hadn't come, I would remember to click the shield up here and allow it to appear. If you don't remember how to allow blocked content, go back to the home page. Go back down to the very first announcement. And one way, if the announcement is gone, because that first announcement is gone now, you should be able to go to News Tool and then find it on the bottom there. Exactly. And how to make sure you can see all content. So revisit these handouts, and that should help you with that. All right, guys, I hope you enjoy session 2. It's really important. Let me know if you have any questions, and I'm looking forward to hearing what you guys think about national, federal issues in education.